Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and in today's video I'm doing my 2021 year roundup. So in this video I'll be talking about all the books I read this year, but also what I did on my channel, and yeah, just kind of a whole year wrap up. But we're going to start with the books, of course. And this year I joined the Storygraph, but I also did not get rid of Goodreads, so I'm just casually out here doing a Goodreads and a Storygraph. But I talked about my Goodreads roundup last year for my year wrap up, so this year I'm going to do Storygraph, and we'll see what I decide for next year. But yeah, there are things that I like about them both, so I have them both. But the thing that I liked about Storygraph was all the graphs. I hate math, but I love graphs. So of course, the first thing I'll talk about is my reading goals that I had for last year, which my goal was 45 books. This is my goal every year since I started Goodreads. It's one that I'm always quite certain I can get this many, and so it's kind of like a minimum goal for me. Last year, I think I beat it by 3 books, and this year I beat it by 1 book. So I read 46 books this year, which is 102% of my goal. Good for me putting that extra 2% of effort in. And then Storygraph also has a page goal, which Goodreads doesn't. And so I had to come up with one for the first time this year, and I just sort of picked 15,000 at random that felt like a nice flat number. So this next year, 2022, I think I'm going to set my goal to 16,000, because this year I completed my goal, and then above and beyond I actually got 17,000. So I think 16,000 is a good goal for next year. But moving on to the next graph, which is my book moods, which is kind of an interesting thing to track. Goodreads definitely doesn't have anything like that on theirs for the most part. And apparently my top mood is adventurous. I read 21 adventurous books this year. And my next one was dark, which I read 15, and emotional, which I read 14, reflective, 13, and mysterious, 10. So those were kind of my top 5 moods for my books. And then my bottom moods were sad, only 1 apparently, which was, I guess, Me Before You. Doesn't seem like the only sad book I read this year, but I guess so. And then only 2 hopeful books, which is sad. Only 2 informative books, which sounds about right. I mostly read fun fiction books, but I would like to learn more from my books. I should put a little bit more effort into that. Only 2 inspiring books, and only 3 funny books, which also sounds right because I'm not usually really looking for just humor in my books, because I don't really find books to be as funny as like movies, for example. But moving on, the next category is pace, which I of course mostly read fast-paced books. I know some people probably like slow-paced books, but I feel like a lot of people, me included, probably get bored by slow-paced books. So I read 46% fast-paced, 30% medium-paced, and 24% slow-paced. And then page number also makes a lot of sense. I mostly read a very average length of books, 300 to 500 pages. 59% of my books fell in that value. And then 26% were less than 300 pages, and 15% were more than 500 pages. So that tracks. And then moving on, fiction versus nonfiction, I read 89% fiction and 11% nonfiction, which again, considering how many informative books I read, that sounds about right. And yeah, I would like to read maybe a little bit more nonfiction, but I do mostly enjoy reading fiction, and I do mostly read for enjoyment. But I also want to make sure that I'm reading for personal growth, at least on some level. So I feel like maybe 15 or even 20% nonfiction would be a nice goal to try to hit. But moving on, genres, these also definitely track. Young adult and fantasy are my top 2. I knew this. Science fiction is surprising me being in that number 3 spot, because I don't typically really enjoy science fiction all that much. Mostly within science fiction, I like dystopian specifically. But let's click and see which ones I read. I read 9 science fiction books apparently. And yeah, a lot of dystopian. The Program series, The Handmaid's Tale and The Testaments, Jurassic Park. I guess The Chaos Walking trilogy is considered science fiction, even though it doesn't feel super science fiction-y to me. But again, it's kind of dystopian. Scythe, another dystopian. So yeah, the only ones on here that like aren't dystopian are Jurassic Park and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which I only read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars because the author was Christopher Paolini. Don't really care for space operas, but do love Christopher Paolini. But did not love To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, unsurprisingly. But going back to those genres, romance at number 4 is somewhat surprising. I'm not a big fan of like just straight on romance, but I do like young adult a lot, and those do intersect a lot. But wow, the books that are listed under romance, I don't really consider a lot of these to be romance primarily. They're primarily something else. Again, The Program is showing up, which that's a dystopian. The First Girl Child, which primarily is fantasy, I would say. Me Before You, definitely a romance. Save Your Breath is a mystery. I would not consider it a romance. And then Again But Better, which, yeah, it's a young adult romance. So in my mind, I more so categorize it as contemporary YA, but it is a romance. Contemporary is up there, which makes sense. Classics is kind of surprising. I apparently read 4. Okay, that makes sense. Lewis Carroll, Emily Dickinson, Handmaid's Tale, and Their Eyes Were Watching God. And then yeah, I'm surprised. 1, 2, 3. Dystopian is number 8 on the list, and it's counting the first book in the Program series and the first and the third book in the Chaos Walking trilogy. So I will say Storygraph has interesting ways of categorizing things. So I would say all these graphs give you kind of a rough idea of your reading, but I wouldn't put full stock in these graphs. All right, and then some of my bottom genres that just barely made it on the list are autobiography, crime, graphic novels, self-help, sports, which I looked at this earlier and I know that one without clicking to be Beartown by Frederick Bachman, which, you know, it's got hockey in it, but I would not call it a sports book. But anyways, moving on from genres to format, which it is saying 7% digital and 93% print. And that 7% is saying that I've read 3 that were digital. That is wrong. I only read 1 digital book this year. Clearly I just marked the wrong version of 2 things. Oh, of all 3 things. The one that I read that was digital is not showing up under the digital section. So again. But yeah, the one digital book that I read this year was The Last Roman, which I read to do a book review of it on my channel for a little digital book tour. I mostly read physical books because that is just how my life is set up now with my ginormous physical TBR. So moving on to my most read authors, which I think all except for one of these, I read multiple books by them because they were a part of a series. The only author that I read unrelated books from was Frederick Bachman, for which I read Uva and Beartown. But yeah, Kendar Blake, I read Three Dark Crowns. Leigh Bardugo, I read The Grishaverse, Chaos Walking, Shades of Magic, Program series, so on and so forth. So moving on to the number of books and pages that I read each month for this year, which this is probably my favorite graph. Love a good line graph. Started strong in January, and then yeah, for the rest of the year stayed pretty even. I had a good month in May, and then June I had a bit of a dip because that was the month that I dedicated to Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, because A, that book is beast, and B, it is science fiction, which is not my favorite genre, so I was like, you know what? This book gets a whole month all to itself. And finally, for my little story graph review, we have my star ratings, which I mostly rate things 3 stars. That's kind of my average rating, so most books are average. Makes sense. But I do definitely rate more books at like 4 and 5 stars than at 1 and 2 stars, so that's good. My 5-star books this year were Mystic River, Three Dark Crowns, The First Girl Child, Two Dark Reigns, A Man Called Uva, The Ask and the Answer, The Knife of Never Letting Go, and the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So mostly rereads. And then yeah, I only rated one book at 1 star, and that was a Lewis Carroll book because classics are not my thing, but I have this beautiful collected works of Lewis Carroll, so I have slowly been working my way through them, even though they're not the most enjoyable read for me. But yeah, that was it for my little review of my 2021 on Storygraph. And now moving on to talking about my year on my channel, my BookTube channel. So first, looking at the email that I got from YouTube, kind of giving their rundown of my year on my channel. You viewers watched 10,000 minutes of viewing on my channel for a total of 2,415 views. And my most viewed book was, of course, my Once Upon a Book Club unboxing. Unboxing videos do well because I think, you know, they're informative. I hope that, you know, any of you who watched that video got a good look at whether or not the box would be worth it for you and was helpful for you. Next up, my top viewing countries were the US, which is where I'm from, Canada, and the UK. And I got 82 comments this year down in my comments. It's always fun when I get a comment. Since I am a smaller channel, I of course don't always get comments, but it's always fun to get comments to reply to and to interact about books. And January was my most viewed month. And yeah, truly, as the email says, thank you for the 266 likes, the, again, 82 comments. I love being able to chat down in the comments, and just all of your support this year. I posted some fun videos this year. I did my own tag for Arbor Day, which was really fun because that was invented in the place that I'm from. And then I also made my own Earth Day tag, which was fun. And that is the first video that I've come up with the idea for that someone else has done. Triumphal Reads did it over on his channel, so go check out his video. I know it's not Earth Day anymore, but I was super excited when someone made one of my videos. I also did some of my first ever decor videos this year, which was fun. Put up some new bookshelves and things. As I mentioned earlier, I participated in an online book tour, which Eric over at Break Even Books invited me to, and that was super fun. I also did some other collab videos with him that are over on his channel. I brought to a close my quotes videos, which I used to do one each month. And so I did my last one for that this year. And then I started my little top 10 series. So that was fun to start a new series. I did videos for Black History Month and Women's History Month. And kind of my favorite video that I did this year was I did MASH Book Edition, in which I played the game MASH on my channel. And that video was just really fun to shoot, and I felt like it was a very funny video, which my videos aren't always necessarily like the funniest videos, so that one was fun for me. And yeah, that's kind of a snapshot of some of my highlight videos of the year. I ended this year off with 173 posted videos, so expecting to hit 200 this year, and 115 subscribers. So once again, thank you to all 115 of those subscribers. And I found some new channels to subscribe to myself this year. I, along with 154,000 other people, subscribed to Uncarly. She's new this year, but she blew up fast because she's so entertaining. Kind of later to the game, I subscribed to Divya. She's hilarious. I discovered the channel Book Roast this year. She's also great. I subscribed to David Wiley, which I can't remember. We've commented on some of each other's videos, and I can't remember who discovered the other and like commented first, but it's been fun occasionally communicating with him in the comments. Again, I mentioned earlier the channel Triumphal Reads. He's pretty cool. He did my Earth Day tag. I subscribed to Jess Owens this year, and also to the channel Books Are My Social Life. So yeah, some great new channels that I discovered this year. Always great to find new stuff. And yeah, that was kind of my year in books and in YouTubing. Thanks again to all of my subscribers throughout this year and the last. I hope you enjoyed watching. Remember, words matter.